you also have to value it.
I like where this conversation's going. Tall poppy syndrome.
Who really knows what I'm capable of if I don't actually try? You can't necessarily have balance without being disciplined first. So a lot of us go into it like, I just want balance. But did you have discipline to even know what balance is? To unlearn those little beliefs that were made that were unconscious things said by other people, but you valued those people and you put them on a certain pedestal, so those beliefs stayed with you for the rest of your life. I want them to know how important, how special, how unique, and how beautiful they are just from within. Overcome those fears that you know are in there. Trust in your intuition. It tells you a lot.
Welcome to today's podcast episode, where we're going to be exploring personal growth, overcoming obstacles, and being true to who we truly are. We're joined by a special guest, Tori, who has over 9 years experience in the fitness industry. She is an online coach, personal trainer, and successfully has her own businesses. Tori, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Tori, I like to jump straight in with a hard question for my guests.
Let's do it.
If you could call a past, present, or future version of yourself, and you have 30 seconds to say something.
Oh my goodness.
What version are you calling, and what are you saying?
That's an amazing question to start with. I think I would call my past self, and within 30 seconds try to explain to her that everything that she's going to go through in her life is going to bring her to where she is now, and to trust the process.
Which version?
My past self.
Yeah, but which past self? Like if you could give her an age.
Okay. An age range. I would say young teen, really becoming into the woman that she's going to be. So yeah, mid-teens to late teens, probably right before I was 20, I would say.
I like it. Tell me about young Tori.
Young Tori. She grew up an only child, and her parents separated right around that time. So it was around junior year to senior year. She went through a lot of hardships and a lot of life lessons at a very, very early age when it comes to learning about friendships and who to trust, and wondering who she's going to become. And kind of just figuring out, as in, sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. Take your time.
I just get emotional thinking about it sometimes.
That's okay. That's okay. It's what the space is for.
Right? Thank you. Really just, I went through a lot of hardships as a child, especially in school, when it comes to bullying and beliefs that were made at such a young age. For example, being made fun of for my legs. In dance class, someone telling me that they're not sexy enough to be in a dance, which for one, who says that in high school? Right. Yeah. Right. And that was, so then from then on, I've always been insecure about my legs. So really just kind of being able to unlearn those little beliefs that were made that were unconscious things said by other people, but you valued those people and you put them on a certain pedestal, so those beliefs stayed with you for the rest of your life, if that makes sense.
No, it makes complete sense, right? It's still, when you think about things and how we interact with people today, it's still a very prominent thing that happens. People will say things, whether it comes from a place of a joke or just passing, not realizing the weight of the words that are being said. I think high school in general is a hard time to go through. Everyone's trying to figure out who they are, or where they belong in the world, where they're trying to navigate. However, most of our I feel like anyway, life lessons are learned in high school. And then we spend our at least 20s and 30s trying to undo those life lessons that we spent learning in high school, which is, you know, I think it makes us better people in some ways as well.
Yeah, especially when you're open and willing to acknowledge what has happened to you and willing to look within to find those things and actually do the work to unlearning them to become a better version, instead of just saying, this is who I am.
Yeah.
And it's because of this.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to change.
It's much easier to be like, it is what it is, or this is who I am, take it or leave it. But there's no room for growth in that. You just stay stagnant in the same place.
Which I know that for me today, I refuse to stay the same. I don't want to. I don't want to be in the same place that I was a year ago. I want to be able to communicate more effectively. I want to overcome certain fears and just be the best version of myself that I could possibly be as each year goes on, instead of thinking, oh, now I'm going to be 31 this year and it's all downhill from here. Instead of like, my 30s are going to be my best years, and then my 40s are going to be even better, and trying to have a positive outlook on becoming wiser and getting older, but being maybe in the best shape that I've ever been in my 40s versus 20s. So, funny story, I was looking through old photos yesterday through my Facebook account, and I saw this photo of after my very first competition. I did my first little fitness photo shoot with a company. And I was like, I look better now than I did then after my first show. And I was a lot younger then, almost 10 years ago, or I can't remember. I think it was, actually, we're about to be in 2025.
I know, it's crazy.
Crazy. That was 10 years ago.
Damn.
And I was like, I am in better shape now than I was 10 years ago. So that's kind of what led to that thought of just in my 40s, maybe I'll be even better. Like, you never know.
Why did you get into competing?
So it was at a time in my life where I grew up in Vegas. And before I was even 21, I was working in the industry, as in the pool parties. Okay. And I started off as a lifeguard.
That's amazing.
Before I was even 20, I will say it was a fun job. Yeah. Like just sitting on the lifeguard stand, tanning all day.
In your 20s?
Yeah.
Sounds fantastic.
Watching people party.
Yeah.
And just hanging out, and like you'd sit there for 30 minutes and then you'd go on like a 10-minute break, and then you'd go and walk to your next little lifeguard stand, and there's a slide and you could sit in the water and hang out. Like it was really cool when I was doing that. But so I did that for a few years, and then after I turned 21, then I went to cocktail waitressing. And it was actually that first year. So it was right after I turned 21, and I had gotten into fitness, but I didn't know exactly what I was doing. So I would go and I would walk on the treadmill, and I would do crunches and bicep curls. And that was really like...
Very odd combination.
I know. Yeah. I would walk on the treadmill because I grew up playing soccer. So like being on the treadmill was comfortable. And then I only knew how to do bicep curls and like ab crunches and different core movements. Because I worked in a bikini, that's kind of like all at the time, that was all I really cared about. I was like, okay, I'm gonna make sure I have a six-pack while I'm working in a bikini. And I met this guy there who ended up, he was my trainer and then ended up being my boyfriend, the whole story.
Standard.
Right. And he started as my trainer, and he was into competing. And so when we would work out together, I would ask him questions about competing. And it kind of just got to the point where after we started dating, then we're like, let's do a competition together. And so we were training for it together. And actually my very first one, I quit because I wanted a bowl of cereal so bad. But I didn't know in my head that I could have continued going on, that it wasn't going to...
Probably would have helped you.
Right. So that night, I remember specifically, I had a bowl of cereal, and then I just stopped my prep. And I was like, I'm over it. And then a few months later, I was a little disappointed in myself because I'm competitive and I knew that I could do it. So a few months later, then I decided to do a full prep and went all in, and I was in it for a few years and did a few shows after that, but it was a learning curve.
What did you learn from
it? I learned how to not have a relationship with food.
Yeah, right.
I think the guidance that I had at the time, they were learning as well. So it was a learning experience for the both of us, and I was just kind of doing whatever he told me to do. And I will say, like, I placed very well in the shows. I did well, but mentally I wasn't well. I was probably at my unhealthiest, both physically actually and mentally. I felt fatigued. I felt lightheaded all the time. I couldn't get through my workouts. Every time I did cardio on the Stairmaster, I thought I was going to pass out. It was not a great time. And mentally, I just started to focus so much on my food, how much was on my plate, what I was eating. And then I was going into, honestly, throughout the week, not really eating much at all. And maybe fish and asparagus. And then on the weekends, terrible
combination. The worst combination of foods ever placed together.
Yep.
Fish
and cold.
Yeah.
I didn't even heat it up because I felt like if I heated it up, to me, it almost was a little...
I think it's worse.
A little worse.
It's worse.
Yep.
And depending on where you are, you have to deal with the repercussions of the smell.
Yes. Yep, exactly. And yeah, then just going into weekends where, I'd kind of go all out. And it just really wasn't a good time in my life, mentally and both physically. But I learned a lot about how you can manipulate the body. You can build it, you can shape it, and what good nutrition can do for you. So I learned a lot of good things by going through all of the bad and the hard.
It's usually what happens, right?
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of women that come out the other side of competing, especially those who've used PEDs, there's a realization that what you put your body through is probably not worth it. And what's the right words? The mental and emotional things that you will develop from it also probably not worth it. Or the emotional blocks or mental blocks that you place up to get yourself through a prep.
I went through a lot of those mental blocks that I still deal with to this day as well. And anytime anybody talks to me about doing a competition, the first thing that I do is try to talk them out of it.
Same.
If I can't,
like, don't do it for the love of God.
Literally. I'm like, if I can't talk you out of it and you still want to do it, that's awesome. And I think you should.
Yeah.
And but I hope you have the right guidance. And are you like strong-willed?
Do you think that's developed? Or can it be developed?
I think it can be. I think so. I think you can't necessarily have balance without being disciplined first. So a lot of us go into it like, I just want balance. But did you have discipline to even know what balance is in the first place? I
don't think competing's balance, though. I feel like it's a very...
Oh, it's one extreme.
Yeah,
it's like way off to one side. Yeah, there's no balance in it. I had my relationship with my friends deteriorated.
Yeah.
I didn't want to hang out with family. I didn't want to do anything. And I'm not saying that's such a negative thing because it brought a lot of great things in my life being so disciplined. A lot did come out of it. But at the time, I sacrificed pretty much everything.
Yeah, it's like one of those things. It's like I have a very strong stance that a person who goes through a prep successfully, usually to the point of a pro, or even getting on stage, continuously, those same traits that are used to get on stage in a fantastic condition can be applied in any aspect of your life instead of just competing.
I would agree with that. Yeah, you could, if you have that in competing, you can place that into almost any aspect in your life too that you want to grow in, but you also have to value it. Because if you're not going to value it, then you're not going to be as disciplined in it, and it's not going to be worth it to you in the end. So when you compete, there's something that's worth it to you. Is it that validation? Are you trying to win? Do you want people to see your hard work? Like, what are you getting out of it that made you want to be so disciplined in it and so motivated? Like, that kept you going throughout all of those 45-minute cardio sessions multiple times a week, twice a day, possibly, like
for hours.
Yeah. So if you find the value in other aspects of your life, then you will stay disciplined in that way, because it will be worth it. But if that value is not there, then you probably will fall off, and it probably won't be something that you're going to stay with consistently.
If I hear you correctly, you're talking about the why, like the why you do it, which, you're right, applies to any aspect. What is your why?
I will say that I have learned recently my why in competing, or do you just mean my why in like what I'm doing right now?
Well, in general, like your why for competing would have taken you so far. You're still in this fitness space, so it's probably changed directions. But yeah, just in general.
Yeah, I will say it has taken a 180 for sure. I mean, back then I did really love training people and helping people, but where I'm at today, the why is a little more being able to see how I can help so many people at one time. So, for example, right now I teach group fitness at this gym called the 12. And my little underneath plug. But it has really become clear like how fulfilled I get when I see such a large group of people working out together and that want it. Like, they come every single day and they work so hard and they have fun. And I really, truly like seeing them so happy while they're working out. Like, I couldn't ask for anything more. And then they want to come back the next day and they want to torture themselves in class and like
2 burpees.
Right. So I like, my why is really truly just helping those people that want it.
I really like that a lot. It's there's something about being able to help somebody else removes the like it's no longer inwardly focused, it's outwardly focused. So being able to be a service of somebody else is like the pinnacle of something that people chase and they don't even realize that's what they want. Like in the search of purpose. The moment that you turn something, instead of having it inwardly focused, you turn it to an outwardly focus and service somebody else, is when you're like, oh, this is what that was meant to feel like. So I completely agree with you.
I think this, like, the service of others too, I think it goes for everyone. Yeah. Like, if you really sit and think about like someone who thanked you for something that you did for them, like, it feels good. And so I really feel like every human being has that in them, but they just haven't come to grasp with it, or really kind of taken it and made it flourish.
Do you think that's because people are afraid of doing the inner work?
Yes. I also do think that social media and society has a huge part in why people don't want to do the inner work. Kind of going back to what we were talking about before, like, they're not open to it. They think this is just me. And this is just who I am. And I grew up this way, so this is how it's going to be. It is what it is. Right. Right. So being an open-minded and willing person to look deep within and find those things that are scary and work on them. So yeah, I would agree with you. Yeah, the fear probably keeps them from it.
What aspect do you think social media plays in it?
I think that social media is showing us how they want society to be. We already learned really quickly how fast we like our jobs can be taken from us, or how quickly they can kind of change things in the snap of a finger, and how quickly people will follow. So I think like we're guided in this direction by, they're only showing us certain things, they're only showing us certain people, and the world is like, it's just taking a turn in where they want it to go to where they're going to benefit from it.
I like where this conversation is going. Where do you think it's going?
Oh gosh.
These are the conversations I dream for, Tori.
I'm not sure. And I have to be honest, I'm scared. I am scared. I'm scared to bring a child into this world.
Fair.
It makes me nervous. I'm nervous for my little sister who's 11. Like, I'm nervous for my boyfriend's children who are 15 and 11 as well. And like, they're so young, and they're like, their brains are just soaking everything up around them. And I just like, so it just makes me nervous where we're heading.
Do you think that's because we see, and maybe I'm able to play a comparison game here, right? Having been from Australia, I can then be like, okay, well, this is what it's like in Australia compared to what it's like in America. Do you think it's because America is so forwardly focused on themselves, like that inwardly focused, and in a way America's like, we are the best, and in some ways they are. In some ways America's not the best and so far behind the rest of the world that I question whether, let me think of these words. I question whether the thought process is because America is so inwardly focused that they're forgetting that how the rest of the world operates. And so the possibility of it being any different is like, well, this is all I see, so this is what it is, as opposed to like somewhere like Australia or Dubai or Thailand or Bali or somewhere like that. They all live in different ways, nothing like America. So I could see someone from Australia or even Bali be like, oh no, I'm good, and how I live is fine. It's how you guys live. And I know there's a question in here somewhere, but do you think the fear is created because of America being so inwardly focused as opposed to externally focused? If that makes sense.
It does. Okay, it does. And I see where you're going with it. And yeah, right. So we're talking about like America being freedom.
Yeah.
That comes with like just oneself. And my mom's from Sweden. So kind of going back to the comparison, I think kind of maybe where you were going is these other places, like Sweden, for example, they're focused on like each other. Yeah. And they really value like getting together. There's even a word where people go and get coffee together. And I don't want to say it wrong, but it's FIKA, fika or fika. I don't want to mispronounce it. Yeah. But it's just people getting together for a coffee has a name. We don't have that out here. No. There's no name for it. Coffee date, meeting for brunch. Yeah. And so like they really value each other, and they really value the people around them. And even just walking around, everyone's outside, they're saying excuse me, they're saying thank you, they're opening doors, they're helping each other out. And yeah, out here it seems a little more like everyone's just here for themselves, or like all for one. Yeah. Or I think, did I miss that? All for, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I get you.
You get what I'm saying? Each man for himself.
Yeah.
That's where I was going with it.
It's funny that you say that was my first, and I don't know whether it's like a California thing, and I've not ventured too far, at least. So I moved in 2016, and only in the last like year, maybe 2 years, that I've got to venture to different states and actually visit or explore, basically. The first thing that I noticed within California moving here was the vibe. Like, if I'm going to do this for you, what do I get out of it? And if I'm not getting something out of it, then we're not doing anything.
Right.
Whereas in Australia, it was like, oh, you need help? Okay, I got you. Like, don't worry about it.
Right. And not expecting anything in return.
Yeah. So that was a very quick, hard lesson and very quick reality shock that I got when I first moved here, that it wasn't this like fun-loving place that I thought it to be. And it quickly gave me a reality check in that aspect.
Because not everyone wants to see you win.
Yeah.
Not everyone wants to see you succeed, because what if you do better than them?
Yeah, it's like a, what's the word? Tall poppy syndrome.
What's that?
That's what we refer to it as. Tall poppy syndrome is...
Tall puppy?
Poppy.
Poppy.
Poppy. So tall poppy syndrome is like weird. So a poppy is a sunflower, right? So if there's a group of sunflowers and one's doing really well, we're going to cut it down so it doesn't outshine the rest.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm going to take that with me.
Just say it
tall
everywhere.
Puppy.
Yeah, tall poppy syndrome.
Wow. It's very true. Unfortunately, it's sad and it's very true. And
is it because this place is so ruthless? Like when I think of California, I think of everybody in the world who wanted to achieve something great, do something great, whether that be in the like Hollywood or just entrepreneurial, because that's what this space is, or feels like it anyway, tech space, everything. It's like everyone around the world came to here wanting to be the best versions of themselves or create or whatever it was. At least this is me. That competition is so ruthless that we forget that we're competing against people as well.
We live in an entrepreneurial place.
Yeah.
For sure. And everyone, comes here because they want to start their business. They want to be wealthy in, let's say, dollar signs.
Yes.
But are you wealthy in your outside life? Are you wealthy in family? Are you wealthy in your friendships? Like, what does your circle look like? The people that you surround yourself with, what do they look like? Because you are who you surround yourself with. And I think, like, it just kind of goes to show that people come here with that mindset. There's so much opportunity out here, which is incredible. It's a beautiful place. That's it's amazing.
Phenomenal.
And we want to see everyone win. But yeah, I agree. It has become kind of this space where, like, nobody, unless you really find those gems of people that surround you, everyone is just kind of out there for themselves. And like, it is sad to see, for sure. And it is hard to find those people that really, they're going to flourish with you.
Yeah.
We're all going to be tall puppies.
It's like the want to bring people up with you. Yeah. Or actually, I'm a very firm believer that I can only bring you so far. You have to bring yourself the rest. I can get myself to a certain point and I will put my hand back to help pull you, but you have to want to pull yourself as well.
Right.
It goes both ways. But I think having those people in your life who are willing to put the arm back and be like, let me help you, is one of the best things you can ever find for yourself.
I love that. I would agree too. Now, being able to find those people that are going to want to help push you up. But then, like you said, also wanting it for yourself. Yeah. Which goes back to wanting to be better, which goes back to willing to be open.
We're just full circle here. What helped you, I'm going to go back to young Tori here. What helped you not get rid of, but work through those limiting beliefs or the nasty things that were said to you growing up?
Okay.
To get you into a path of where you are now.
I like that. So there was a time, it wasn't even that long ago. It was actually, probably 2 years ago. It was right before I started being a group fitness instructor. And I felt lost. I felt like I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I went through a phase of doing these things that scared me the most. One of them was believing that I couldn't sing. It was just super random. But that was one of those beliefs.
Can you sing? Just out of curiosity?
Maybe.
Okay.
I don't know if I can. I think so. Yeah. I try. Yeah. Okay. I've made an effort to make videos, and I sent them to Anthony or a friend, and see how they feel about it. Like, how does it sound?
Yeah.
But one of those beliefs was that I couldn't sing, but I used to be in choir and I used to try out for all the solos. I may not have gotten any, but I tried.
Yeah.
And there was one day I was at home. I was in middle school at this time. And I was at home and I was singing in my room by myself. And I heard the garage door open. And then my mom was like, "What was that screaming?" And from that point on,
you're like crushed little Tori.
I believed that I couldn't sing. She didn't know. She didn't know any better. Like, I'm not blaming her.
Yeah.
Maybe it did sound like screaming. I don't know. But from then on, I didn't really want to sing anymore, especially in front of anybody. But like my friends and I, we would sing together. We would play like American Idol, and she would sing a song and then I would sing a song and we would kind of vote. And I always would sing by myself in the car. And I refused to sing in front of anybody. So that was something that I really wanted to overcome. So I signed up for singing lessons,
which I love.
That was hard. That was really scary. And then I decided to start posting them on TikTok.
Oh, good for you.
I did.
Good for you.
I can't believe I did that. But it was one of those beliefs that I was like, well, I have this fear and maybe I can.
Yeah.
Who really knows what I'm capable of if I don't actually try? So I signed up for singing lessons. I went every Friday for a couple months and I started filming it, and I would kind of clip it together and post some on TikTok. And then my teacher was great, but I will admit there was a point where we were just singing songs off of like my phone. So I would play it and then I would just sing along to the song. So I felt like it got to a point where I wasn't getting my money's worth out of it. Okay. So that's why I stopped. And I was like, I can do this. This is what I do in the car. Yeah. Like, I'm not getting much feedback. Yeah. I'm not learning much anymore. So it kind of stopped. You did it. But I did it.
That's what matters. You did it.
But I'm still scared. That's the thing. Okay. That's the thing, is I'm still scared. But I will say I sing a lot when I'm teaching on the mic. So it's almost, I use it as practice sometimes.
And in front of 60 people.
In front of 60 people. But they're all working out. No one's looking at me. Yeah. I'm having fun with it. I'm singing along. I'm rapping along. And like, there will be times where I'll genuinely like practice certain parts of songs. But nobody's staring at me, and the music's very loud. So it's not just me by myself, quiet singing. So I use it as practice, and I never would have thought in a million years that I would be on a microphone singing essentially to a big group of people. They may not fully be paying attention, but some do. And some compliment me sometimes, actually. So I think that's like one of those beliefs that younger Tori had to really unlearn recently as an adult now. And I'll be 31 this year.
That's amazing.
And that was from middle school.
When you think about it, like 60 people in a room, right? Most people don't even want to talk on a microphone in front of 60 people. Mm-hmm. So to be able to, put people through a workout, have fun with it, rap, sing, anything other than just speaking what you're doing or what they have to do, huge. Like, huge.
I'll tell you a little bit about like how it even kind of came to get to that way. So one of the very, very first time I went through training, she put me on a microphone.
Yeah.
Very first time.
Yep.
And I had to pretend to be all these different characters.
Yep.
And I had to act it out too. So that, like, from day one already pushed me past my comfort zone. I was so uncomfortable. And it actually got to a point where we were a little nervous that I wouldn't even be able to kind of come out as trainer Tori and bring it. Because when, people come in after work, I have to bring it.
Yep.
Even if everyone there looks pissed off, I have to bring it. So
you're the light for everybody.
Yeah. So you have to get past that uncomfortability of being weird and being different and being like crazy on a microphone, and bringing that different side to ensure that people are going to enjoy themselves and learn. So I knew that working out, teaching people how to work out was the easy part for me. But now I had a group of 50, 60 people that I have to teach how to work out and ensure that I bring the energy for them and create a safe space for them to want to work hard and to feel comfortable enough to ask me questions and listen to me during the demo. It's hard to get a group of that many people, especially when they're all friends because they come every day, to want to listen to you. And that was challenging in the very beginning. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You simultaneously just realized what it's like for the teacher back when we went to school.
I can't even imagine, especially with children trying to get their attention. But that just comes with, they have to respect you. If they're not going to respect you, then it's not going to happen.
No.
So
it's like anything, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I had a question for you, and it's kind of just escaped my mind. You're worried about what the world will look like for, like, the younger, let's call them children in your life right now.
Mm-hmm.
What are you most worried about?
I will say, I want my, I also forgot to say, so I have a little sister. She's my half sister. I also have another little sister. We're not blood related, but she calls me Sissy Tori, and she's only like 5. She'll be 6 soon. So like very young. And I really just, I want them to grow up in a world where they feel confident in themselves.
Yeah.
But I also I don't want them to feel like they have to do everything on their own either. You know, I want them to feel like they have support. I want them to be able to find a partner in life who's going to support them, but where they don't have to rely on that person as well. But be comfortable enough to like sit in that feminine energy and know that like that whoever their partner is going to help them along the way too. And that was something that like my dad would tell me all the time. I will say I spent majority of my young years in a relationship.
Like teenage or 20s?
Both.
Okay.
Both. Yeah. I've been in a relationship with 3 people and they have all been long term. And I just want to ensure that my little sisters, they don't look for outside validation. I want them to find it from within and not have to look to social media for people to clap for them or for people to heart eyes their pictures. Like, I want them to know how important, how special, how unique, and how like beautiful they are just from within. That's my biggest fear.
Yeah, that's like, I've always wondered what it will be like or what it would be like for teenage girls coming through high school right now, even boys, but obviously we can relate to the girls with social media. I can't imagine the comparison that is made or let's start with the comparison that would be made between teenage girls as to how they should show up on social media, or if you're from a low income family, what it would be like for somebody from a higher income family in that comparison game. But then you also have the comparison from everybody around the world as opposed to just your school. And then you have added in the increase of sex and sexuality online compared to just being, the small amount of knowledge that you might have had about sex or sexuality. And now it's tenfold. And then the same on relationship scales. It's now tenfold. The accessibility for young women and men to have access to whatever they want is like a great, fantastic thing. But then it also has this like dark looming downside that I'm very, like, on one hand, very curious to know what will happen in like 5 to 10 years. On the other hand, I'm like, do we really want to see what's going to happen in 5 to 10 years and which way this goes?
Right, because we don't even know what effect it has just yet because it wasn't that accessible when we were younger. Yeah. The only access that I had was finding the Playboy magazines. That was all I would see. I didn't go on Facebook and see like you said, I didn't see sexual photos. I didn't see any of that immediately at such a young age. The only thing I saw was the Playboy magazines.
Yeah.
And
which were excellent back then.
Right.
Yeah.
So like I know my little sister's gonna open TikTok or open social media and just she's gonna see a lot of sexuality immediately. And yeah, we don't really know what effect that has on our younger generations just yet. Gosh, we sound so old.
I know. But
we're not, definitely not. But
like, it's literally the thing that I think about. And like, even the comparison game between sex and what sex is, what sexual wellness is, and then what sexuality actually is, I think is a whole different conversation that we've not, or at least in my corner of the world, has ever opened up to. Like, obviously sex is the act in which what happens, but then you have sexual wellness is how we look after ourselves, how we're able to connect with ourselves, women, so forth. And then what was my last one? Oh, sexuality as a whole. I think that's a whole different ball game that we've not even looked at.
I would agree. I would agree. It's like we don't really know what's going to happen. And there wasn't OnlyFans when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's amazing. Like I'm really glad that women can make money that way. And I want women to do what feels good for them and what feels confident for them. But at the same time, like I don't want my little sisters like looking for that for validation.
Yeah. It's like, I, on one hand, I'm like, I understand why OnlyFans was created.
Yeah.
Fantastic idea. Like, fantastic idea, especially for women who work in sex work. It's like they control everything as opposed to somebody else. They're controlling how they make the money. They control everything.
And it's safer. Yes. They're not on the streets. Like, it's a lot safer for them for sure.
And then on the flip side, it's like, well, if I'm a young girl and I'm at a shitty place in my life, I need to get out of home, whatever it might be, it's like, well, I'll just go on OnlyFans and I can think like because that's what's being portrayed, I can make millions of dollars in a month and I'm sad. Where the reality is most women aren't making millions of dollars a month. Most creators on OnlyFans don't make, like, we only see how much everybody's making when they're doing well. We don't hear about the people who are on it and not doing well.
Right.
It's like women who do, what is it called? Women who enter the porn industry, same thing. We hear about the women who do really well, or the men who do really well, but we don't hear about those who don't do well.
Yeah, who are struggling. And right, that makes a lot of sense. As well as like social media, we only see the highlight reel. We only see the good that our people are posting, the good parts of their life. We're not. I don't know though, actually. I feel like a lot of people are sharing. You'll open up and see a lot of people talking about their hardships, and you'll open up social media or TikTok to people kind of crying on camera and things like that. So
do you think that's helpful?
I think it's relatable. I think they're trying to relate to people. I will say I don't necessarily always. I'm not going to say all the time. I think if you're telling a story and you start to get emotional and you cry, like that seems very relatable and it makes sense.
Like the emotions that's being brought up from me telling this story. Like you, at the start of the episode.
Right. Yeah. So there are times where like I'll see that's the like first thing that's going on. So I can relate to that because I'm an emotional woman, but also at the same time, like, but the last thing I want to do when I'm upset or I'm in that moment is to like put the camera in front of my face.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's just for me personally. So it almost becomes unrelatable to me at that point. But I do love when people share stories and their hardships, and when you see them talking about it and you see the emotions come out, that's what's more relatable in my opinion. And instead of always just sharing, because that's really what social media is. We're just sharing like trying to stay positive and trying to share the best parts of our life. But it's not always realistic. And I feel like I hear that topic come up quite a bit. So I feel like people are starting to realize that a little bit more. Would you agree?
Like the oversharing, or the want to prop up a camera and film myself in an emotional time?
I think more of people realizing that everything they see on social media isn't always real.
Yeah.
It's not
said,
real
right?
life, right?
Yeah, it's not real life, and it's said. And I think like trying to split it, right? Because on some ways, if I was still in Australia looking at how people live their lives here in California, I'd be like, that's not real. Flip side is, now that I've been here and I can see it, I'll be like, oh no, that is real. Like what people do post. And then it's trying to remember that just because they're posting all their happy days, all their positive things, all the great things that are happening in their life, doesn't mean that in some way different to ours, they still struggle, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So while I might be struggling behind closed doors with whatever I'm dealing with in my life, somebody else can also be struggling while simultaneously posting about a fantastic life that they have, because you can have both. Like two can coexist together.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I like where you went with that. I'd agree.
I have thoughts about the filming, and I'm 90% sure I'm going to call myself out, and I did it once. And I think this comes from because I've been in therapy for so long. You've done therapy, right?
I tried.
You're like, tried, didn't work.
We can talk about that after.
Okay. So I think it's because I started doing therapy, like talk therapy, and then I moved to like a more like regression, dealing with the deep wounds themselves. That I just found like, while I want to relate to you while you're crying, it's not in that state. It's more of I can see how much you're hurting, and I know that you're hurting, but somewhere in that hurt, you decided that propping up a camera to film yourself was the appropriate thing to do, and maybe it was for you. Like what you said, I find a hard time relating to that. And I feel like it almost creates a place for people to want to either trauma dump on social media or try to relate to people, but I don't think it's working in the way that they want it to. Or maybe it is on some way. This is just me obviously talking out loud.
Yeah.
But I think it has the harm to keep people stuck in that position, because when we circle back to the idea of social media validating somebody, and if that's what you're seeking, well, now you're validating me for showing up and crying in front of the camera. So I could just perform that for you all the time, and now I'm getting what I want, but it's a performance.
That makes a lot of sense. Going back to therapy.
Yeah.
I tried to, when this was my past relationship, and we had gone through a lot, and we tried to go to therapy, and it was
couples therapy?
Yes,
okay,
couples therapy. And it was one of those situations where I came in and I was immediately started crying pretty much.
Oh, so you're at the tipping point.
I was at the tipping point because I feel like I wanted to be heard, but I also don't feel like I knew how to even communicate it. So I think that's already where it probably started off on the wrong foot, because I didn't even know how to explain my emotions. So I think that's why I just cried.
Yep.
When I notice for myself, when I have a hard time and I feel like I'm not being understood and I'm not even explaining it in an efficient way for someone to understand, I kind of I will cry. And that's just like my defense mechanism almost, maybe. I guess you could say it like that. I don't know how else to portray my emotions. And so going into that, I don't think I even knew where to start or what to say. So I immediately just got emotional. And I tried to explain. And he sat there quietly. And she would kind of just ask me, and how does that make you feel?
The standard therapy
So I was
question.
like, well, clearly
Clearly I'm upset.
I'm a little upset.
Oh,
and
God, yeah.
so it was just, that's really all that we kind of got from it, was she was just asking me how it makes me feel. So I was like, okay. And then she pulls me aside after, just me, and tells me, which I already knew, that I need to go to therapy on my own, which I already knew. I was like, I know that.
Thank you.
I want to.
Yeah.
I really want to. I've been through a lot of trauma and toxic relationships and abuse that, like, I know I need to, but that was all we got out of it. And that was the only time we went together. Clearly we're not together anymore. And then I think it was actually your referral.
I love that.
I can't remember. What was her
Stephanie?
name? Yeah. In Newport. Beautiful place overlooking.
Oh, no, wait. Okay, so not Stephanie. It's my first therapist. Come on, think. Carolyn.
Yes. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
She was
phenomenal.
Oh my
office.
gosh. I went.
Yeah.
She was amazing and immediately just shared all kinds of things.
Yeah. She probably has a couch like this too, actually.
Yeah. It was a really good experience.
Yeah.
But at that time, I couldn't afford her and I was really sad about it.
Yeah.
And I really, really wanted to work with her. So I haven't even gone looking for anyone else in the meantime, because I just, like, I felt so connected with her, but I just couldn't afford it at the time. And
yeah.
Which, like, I really want to go back and I want to talk to someone. I know there's a lot of things that I need to work on and that I would like to be better with, and I felt like she could help me. So
yeah, like, therapy is one of those things. I was I don't need therapy. Like, my stance on it was, I don't need therapy, and there was nothing that a therapist was going to tell me that I didn't already know about myself or my life. So I was like, very not doing this, not going. Similar to you, the first time I went was for couples with my ex-husband. And I've seen 3 therapists now. The first one, I was like, oh, I don't like you. Like, the vibe is wrong. I feel like I'm being blamed. Simultaneously, you're trying to create a safe space while not doing that. What I learned from that, to this day, and in all my future relationships, I will never do couples counseling. I will see individually, and then maybe we see them, like, the same therapist together. But I think for it to work successfully, you should have separate times to be able to comfortably be like, this is what I want to talk about. So then you can come back together. Talk therapy is fantastic. But I think there's a certain point that somebody gets when talk therapy will no longer help them. Or you can spend 10 years in talk therapy talking about the same things and not actually dealing with the core root issue of what started it.
There's something I wanted to ask you, actually. Yeah. I know you've done shadow work a lot, and it's something that I've been extremely intrigued with, but I don't know much about. So I would love to hear your take on what exactly it is and maybe a first step to getting started.
It's great that you're asking me this question, because my next episode will be about this as well.
Perfect.
Yes, it was fantastic. So when the next episode's released, I'll also include a workbook, which I'll send to you. So the shadow is like, we've had this discussion before, I'm pretty sure.
A little bit, yeah.
The shadow refers to parts of ourselves that we've deemed not acceptable. So it doesn't mean that they're, quote, good or bad. It just, we decided, or somebody decided for us, that there was like this negative connotation to them. So within the shadow can be fantastic talents that we never knew that we had. It's just, for like you, singing, somebody once made a remark about it and you're like, oh, not good, so I'm just going to push that out of my conscious and we'll never have to worry about it again. So the more we start to look into what's in the shadow, we start to integrate parts of ourselves that we decided was not acceptable. There can be traits in there that make us feel uncomfortable. And this is like probably one of my favorite conversations, is we're very quick to label people narcissistic. And somebody who has been, labeled that by a professional, fantastic. But we all have those qualities within us. It's like which wolf we want to feed. We all have those qualities within us at varying different levels. And the more that we try to say, oh, we're not like that, or I don't do that, or I'm not that person, the more we push it away and it's projected and amplified into the world around us. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Oh yeah, I'm in it.
Tori's like, I'm here for this. So when we look at somebody and we're like, oh, like, and we pass that judgment, that usually, you know, the saying, what Sally says about Susie says more about Sally than it does Susie.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. If we're making a judgment, that says more about me than it does about them, because that judgment is actually just a projection of me that I've yet to accept. So if I look at a girl, let's just say I'm looking at somebody on social media and I'm like, I want her or I'm jealous, or she probably got it all handed to her or whatever. It just means that I'm just jealous of what she has and I want it. Mm-hmm. And the moment that you're like, oh, I want what she has, and I don't have it, but because she has it, I can get it too, it like removes any negative feeling towards it because you've just accepted for what it is.
Yeah.
When we think of projecting, right? Projecting is like if somebody triggers us and we're like make an assumption about a person, like that person's X, Y, and Z when really we know nothing about them, or we storytell, that's a projection from within ourselves. Mm-hmm. So I need to go and look at that. If somebody says something to me and it makes me feel like a weird feeling, or like I'm like, oh, like, or if there's somebody struck a nerve, that's me.
Yeah.
All me.
Mm-hmm.
How I choose to react to that person is me as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you integrate those parts, the less reactive we become. The more centered and at peace we become with ourselves, because we've integrated ourselves from little fragmented parts to whole.
That's what I was going to say. It's like it brings you peace.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, to be able to accept and look and be like, okay, this person has this. That's something that I've always wanted. Accepting it, acknowledging it, and then you can either let it go, or you can be like, well, what can I do to get that? What's the next step? Maybe I could ask them for advice. Yep. Maybe like when you tell someone or reach out to someone and say, hey, how did you get this? Or I am inspired by you in this way. Can you give me a tip or two on how to achieve that? But then that also goes with, do these people want to see you win? Do these people want to see you succeed? Who's in your circle? But but it feels good. I bet you, even if that person didn't want to help you, it felt good. Yes.
So I always flip things back now, and I'll talk about this in the next episode as well. The moment that I have a thought process of like outwardly trying to blame somebody, or this person did X, I have, and it's still like a process thing of learning to change those thought patterns. It's what did I do? Mm-hmm. And obviously in certain situations you probably did nothing wrong, right? However, we bring ourselves to those situations. So for you and me as well, you just mentioned abusive relationships, right? Mm-hmm. There is not an aspect in any way, shape, or form that somebody deserves to be in an abusive relationship at all. Right. And once we've done that healing to be like, okay, that's what it was, that's what it is, the question then becomes, and this is how we take our power back, it's how did I get myself there? Mm-hmm. At what point did I feel like that type of treatment was acceptable or that I deserved? And when you start to ask yourself those questions, right, because it takes it from outwardly focused to inwardly focused, that's when the game changes. Because instead of giving away control and power, you pull it back.
I think that's something that I have really came to terms with, but I am really actively trying to work on is not blaming myself, because it becomes, it can become a selfish thing to think that what you're doing is the reason or cause of this issue or the cause of this problem. So for me, I tend to think that like if someone's energy shifts around me, I think it's my fault. I start to blame myself. If an issue arises in the relationship, I think, what did I do? I immediately am like, what can I be? What can I do? What did I do to cause this problem? And it becomes a selfish thing, because instead this person is trying to share something of maybe a trigger that they had from their past, and it doesn't have to do with me. It just has to do with something that happened in their past.
Yeah.
But I make it about me. I don't want to. That's not my intention. I don't try to, but it happens. And it's something that I still struggle with like pretty harshly to this day. And I really am trying to figure out how can I work through that. I know if I find a therapist or if I go back to therapy, that could be a huge help, because it's something that will, in the moment, I recognize, but I can't pull myself out of it as hard as I try. And I try very hard.
Do you journal?
Not as much as I used to.
Okay.
I used to a lot more. And I think nowadays, I kind of, when I'm on my own or when I sit with myself, I just kind of try to calm my mind. I think just like with the work that I do now, I just want to kind of shut off sometimes.
Yeah.
And journaling makes you think. Yeah. You want to think. So that's probably kind of where my energy has just shifted a little bit. When I have time to myself, I try to just kind of be at peace, and I don't want to think of much, and I just try to relax my mind. So it is something that...
Do you feel like that's avoiding what you need to do?
That could be. That makes sense.
Like maybe.
Yeah. That does make a lot of sense. And maybe it is.
Anything that triggers us in the present is from the past. Like that anxious feeling, like, what is it? I think anxiety is living in the present, anxiety is living in the future, depression's living in the past.
Yes. Yeah.
The first thing I ever did, and I think this wasn't until I moved from talk therapy. Like, talk therapy for me at the time was just to get me through the week. Like, have somebody that I could be like, I need to emotionally dump on, to try and make sense of the time that I was going through, get me through it, and then come back the next week and do it again. Whereas the therapy that I kind of do now, and I call it therapy, and it's kind of on the spectrum, I guess, but it is going back and healing the deep wounds, right? Or where where it first started. And it starts in usually the craziest places, but in childhood, right? So in those moments that I'm like, don't know how to process something, it's literally ask yourself a question. How old am I? And I guarantee the question that pops up is not your current age. It'll be something in the past. Let's say it's 10, right? What do I feel right now? How can I support you? Everything is a curious question, as opposed to this is what we need to do, this is what we should be doing. It's curious.
Yeah.
The first, life is a series of patterns, right? And the pattern is changed when we make a choice to make a different one. Most people don't realize that they just repeat the same pattern over and over again. The first and the biggest is looking at your relationship dynamics. So how the relationship started, how it ended, how you treated your significant other, how they treated you, and how you showed up in the relationship and how they showed up in the relationship. And from that, it will just blow everything out of the water, because you'll be able to see the patterns in which maybe you show up. Like, example for me, avoiding things, right? Maybe there was a level of codependency within the relationship dynamics. Maybe it started on the basis of cheating and ended on cheating, because that's usually the same thing. Or it's another example. Maybe there was a lot of cheating within the relationship dynamic. For me, I stayed, right? So it's like, why did I stay? Why did I feel like that was all I deserved? And when you look at those things, you're able to start looking at, okay, if this is how I show up in my romantic relationships, how do I show up in my friendships? And that is usually from how your family dynamic operated, where you showed up in the family dynamic, and how you felt seen, heard, or not of those.
Makes sense too. And it goes with also, what are you bringing? What qualities are you bringing to these friendships and relationships?
Yes.
What qualities are you expecting out of your friendships and relationships? Do you have those qualities that you want out of other people? Because you're only going to bring those people around you that, like, that energy that you're putting out is what's going to be brought back to you. So are you those certain qualities that you're looking for in other people? Are you showing up in the way that you want your partner to show up for you too?
Sorry, do you believe that we can show up in different ways, like not necessarily have the same qualities? Because what you will be able to bring for me, like I'm a very serious person by nature. So I hope that the person that I can call in isn't as serious as I am. So it like brings out the side of me that is playful and fun and not so serious. And maybe they need somebody in their life that is a little bit more serious. So I'm able to do that for them.
I think I agree. Yeah. Opposites, you know, prove that they definitely do attract. I guess I mean in certain aspects of like honesty, respect, loyalty, communication, are like
your values.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's huge. I think a lot of people, and I feel like we do this in our 20s, right? And I shouldn't say a lot of people, but from personal experience, we look on the exterior first. So attraction is a huge thing. I'm not going to pretend like it's not. Attraction is a huge thing. But if we only rely on those, that's when we kind of lose ourselves in relationships or friendships, that we end up sitting there and being like, oh, this is not authentic to me, or this is not how I want to show up in the world, or this is not being true to who I am, because I didn't follow my values. I followed attraction.
Putting out certain energy because you want that relationship to work, but it in the end doesn't end up working out because you're not showing up as who you actually are.
Yes.
It's almost just kind of like putting on a little bit of a front.
The mask.
Or like, this person doesn't see who I actually am or who I truly am, but it will come out eventually. And that's kind of when things start to go astray. Because then you're like, well, I wasn't voicing this in the beginning, but I'm voicing it now. But I've always felt this way. If that makes sense.
No, it does. Makes complete sense. It's the mask or the persona that we wear, thinking that somebody will love that version, when really we're a different version. We just showed them the wrong one.
Right.
When really, if we're who we are, we'll probably attract somebody who loves us for who we are.
I will say that's like, I really respect my boyfriend Anthony that I have right now. We went through a lot of work in the beginning of our relationship, and we're still learning about each other now. But the only way to get to like a strong, solid foundation is to talk about those traumas we've been through, is to talk about the triggers that we're aware of. But there's some that are dormant that we're not aware of, and then that partner's going to bring it out. So then how open are you to want to work through it with that person? Are you going to put in the work? Because it's not easy. Like, it's not, you can't, every day is not going to be the most exciting day with your partner. And it's having the confidence in knowing that this person that you're with, you guys are going to get through it together. You guys are both going to put in the work together to go through those times where emotional or a trigger is like tapped into, or like those past traumas, they start to kind of show up in the relationship. And then you have to ensure that your partner is strong enough to tell you, hey, like this, maybe this is happening because of this, or because of what you went through, or you shared this with me, maybe this is why. And like being able to work through that together and be honest with one another. And we have been able to work through everything that has kind of come in our path.
I love that.
It's been a journey and it's been an adventure and it's been fun and it's been hard. And we're definitely at a place now where we really understand each other, and we're still learning. Like things still come up.
It's a never ending.
Not. I think doing that hard work in the beginning, I feel like then comes like a honeymoon phase, because then when you really understand each other, then it just makes things a lot easier.
Yeah.
And then you can really have fun with each other and like grow and do different things together. But especially when it comes to communication, you've talked to Anthony a few times. You see how intellectual he is and knowledgeable. And I will say there's a lot of times where I feel like I can't keep up.
Oh, interesting.
Right. Because he explains it in such a way where like he has all these words that he's got different like colors of the spectrum. So it's not just like black, white, blue, yellow, red, not like those foundational colors, but he's got like maroon and turquoise. So like his words, he has the knowledge to be able to express himself in a way where like I can understand and where it makes sense. And I didn't always have that. So the communication part, he can explain with all these cool different words that I didn't have. And so working with him on learning how to communicate a lot more efficiently has been like something that I really like thank him for and admire him for, because I didn't really always have that. So learning how to communicate effectively and speak with confidence has definitely had a lot to do with him. So I have to give him a lot of props for that.
Shout out to Anthony. I really like that. I think actually I struggled with communication a lot in my marriage. And it's like the one thing that I'm actively since then tried to improve. Like it's the thing that I strive for to try and improve every way that I can. Because communication is what connects every relationship, just not romantic.
And we all really want to be understood.
Yeah.
Right? That's all we really strive for when we talk and communicate, is to really just be understood. So be able to say what you mean effectively changes everything.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to go talking in circles around a certain topic if it's just, okay, these 3 words.
Yeah.
But you don't have them yet.
Yeah.
So just talking yourself in circles, sometimes like I do, like I'm still learning, but to be able to just say kind of what you mean without giving the most energy and having someone just understand you is really kind of like, I feel like what we all really strive for. We just want to be understood.
Yeah, understood, seen, heard, loved. The 4 basic things that we have in life.
That's why I think the human connection, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. Even though like we're so technologically advanced and robots and this and that, but the human connection, we're all going to go back to it. At least I think so.
I think we will too.
I don't think you can get rid of it.
I think it might be in different ways. Like when you think of those goggle things that are coming out.
Yeah.
I feel like,
I love that you don't even know the name. The goggle things.
I wish I knew what they were called. I kind of see it being a process. That's how people would want to try and connect. But I think COVID proved that people want to be around each other. Whether it's this type of connection or it's through a screen, I think the connection will still be there. But I think screens will play a prominent part. We just have to look at the phone. Did you
see the I think it was in New York City and
Dublin.
Was it Dublin? Portal that they built?
Phenomenal. Like
coolest thing ever, where you can see in real time the people that are on the other side of the world.
It's like a big FaceTime.
That's the coolest thing.
Yeah.
That's why the human connection it can't go anywhere. It's not going to. We're always going to crave it. We're always going to crave acceptance, like you were saying, and love and the human connection. That was the coolest thing I've seen. I want to go there just so I can see that.
It's phenomenal. When you think about when you think about when we went to school, right? We didn't have an iPhone. Like, at least for me, dial-up internet was still a thing. And house phones were still a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not that old. I'm 32. So I don't know how many years ago that was. When you think of in, say, 15 years' time, what it will be like, I don't think we'll have an iPhone. Like, just like we didn't have, like we had a house phone and it's no longer the occasional. I don't think it'll be an iPhone anymore.
What do you think it'll be?
I have no idea. Like it excites me and scares me at the same time.
Yeah. We're always ever changing.
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody goes to anybody's door anymore and knocks. Like, hey, can Tori come out and play? Nobody does that.
Text.
Yeah, and then if you don't, nobody just shows up. Like, hey, how are you doing today? What are you up to? It's not like that anymore.
Mm-mm.
We'll text like, hey, how are you? What are you doing? People don't usually answer. Or if they do, they're like, oh, I'm good. How are you? And then that's like, that's pretty much it for the most part. But yeah, like you can't, it's weird now to just show up at someone's door. Yeah. It's like, almost
there has to be an emergency if somebody just randomly shows up at my door.
Yeah. So it is very fascinating to think about where in 10, 15 years of time, where we will be, especially with cell phones.
Yeah.
It used to be a flip phone, used to be a little BlackBerry thing. And then it was just...
Did you have the Nokia 3315?
I know I had a Nokia, but it was that little rectangle. You could play Snake on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had
Great
one of those.
Great phone.
That was old school.
Great.
And then the pink Razor was all the rage.
Yeah, it's just... Yeah, so good times. Things were so much simpler then.
I know.
What are you up to now?
Great question. Well, I am keeping myself pretty busy with teaching the group classes. I teach every afternoon, and I have a couple in-person clients in the morning still, and then a couple online. So those are a little more part-time. I will say posting on social media has really taken a back seat for me. During that time where I was wanting to do all those things that scared me, like take singing lessons and stuff, I really didn't want to rely on social media anymore. I was honest. I am still a little tired of it, to be honest. I like keeping up with stories.
Yeah. But
for some reason, when it comes to posting on the feed, why do I say, people say the internet, or that's how I sound right now.
Yeah.
I just don't have the urge or motivation to, I don't even know what I want to post anymore. But when it comes to stories, like I have no problem sharing this or that. But yeah, with social media has taken a little bit of a backseat, and as well as Comfy Culture, the small business that I started
let's talk about that.
Back during COVID. And it was because our jobs got taken away so quickly. Of course, I wasn't making an income. I can't train people in person anymore. And I was really trying to get creative with like, well, who am I? What do I like to do? What is going to help? How am I going to make like a side gig? How am I going to make some money? How am I going to live my life? I just moved out here to California. I am living in a studio by myself. How am I going to do this? What am I going to do? So it really forced me to get a little creative and think outside the box a little bit. And that's kind of where Comfy Culture came into play. And I used to, this is going to sound silly, but I used to just enjoy going to the store and looking at coffee cups. And that would make me so happy inside. Not sure why, but
I just woman to please, Tori.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
I just take me to the store and we'll look at coffee cups and smell candles, and I'm good to go for the rest of the day. That'll be like a date.
Love
Anthony.
I was going to say, Anthony.
We'll go look at coffee cups one day. So I was like, well, what can I do with coffee mugs? And I was like, what am I going to do to fill my time? I was going to the beach and I was journaling every single day, and I was going on walks and I was outside all the time. I refused to be inside because that's what they wanted us to do. And I was like, well, I'm going to do the opposite. I would be the one going in the grocery store not wearing a mask. That was me.
It's funny how the rebel shows up in our lives.
I'm sorry to say it, but like, I honestly refuse to follow any of the rules. And my parents would be upset. They'd be like, why aren't you doing this? And why aren't you wearing the mask? And I was like, I just don't want to. I don't know. I don't feel like this is real right now. This is crazy. It doesn't seem like real life. So I was like, well, what can I do with coffee mugs? And so I would just watch YouTube videos on how to screen print. I was like, okay, well, how do I do that? And it kind of just turned into creating designs. And then I did start a podcast. It was called Let's Get Comfy. And I came out with a sweater and coffee mugs. And
which was the most comfortable sweater I've ever been in, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. That was fun while I was in it. And it was hard starting a business because I didn't have the right guidance. I didn't really know what I was doing. So I definitely spent a bunch of money on product, and I still have product at home just kind of sitting there, and I don't know what to do with it.
Sell it.
Yeah, I should.
Sell it.
Yeah.
Like, that's what we should do, Tori. Sell the inventory.
You're not wrong there. Yeah, so it's kind of just there. And I will say, when I got hired at the 12, that's when it kind of took a back seat.
Yeah.
I was so focused on being the best group trainer that I could be that everything else was like, well, that's going to be back there for a while. And I was so honed in on, okay, how do I become the best trainer that I can be?
Yeah.
How can I show up for these people to where they're going to trust me, respect me, want to listen to me, especially so when we demo the exercises, it's quiet and it takes a few minutes, and I will say I over explain, but I wanted them to like trust in me so much and believe in me and want to listen to what I have to say. So I started saying like, try it this way, do it this way. Let's try this. Put your feet this way, put your arms this way. Like, you're going to feel it a little different here. So I wanted them to like want to listen to what I was going to say. And so I was just so focused on
your craft.
Yeah, genuinely like perfecting it and being the best that I could be in that. And all that kind of took a backseat. But I will say now I've realized the kind of trainer that I want to be, and now I have a little more time and energy to put into other places. So it's come up in my mind a lot, and figuring out, okay, where can I go from here, and how can I do it a little smarter this time and not just order a bunch of inventory and then have it sit there. And I don't call it a failure yet. It's still active. The site is still active. It's still there. I just am trying to figure out, okay, well, I'm not the best at marketing, so let me hire someone who that's their profession, who they're good at. I'm not good at it, so I'm going to hire someone who is.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where
Outsource.
that's kind of where I am, where I'm at now. Is I definitely would like and need a little bit of help with it. So just finding those people to help me and help build it back up and find the right guidance. But yeah, it's still there.
I feel like your mission for the next like month should be sell inventory.
Okay. I have a lot of coffee mugs still.
They're excellent coffee mugs. Like, excellent.
I was extremely thankful because I kind of started that when I was in Earned.
Yeah.
And you guys supported me so much. And I swear everyone like wanted to buy a mug, and it was one of the greatest feelings. And
I love that.
I really thank you and appreciate you for that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I think that's one of the greatest things, and it's no longer Earned, it's now called Society, but that community that was built in that place.
Mm-hmm.
It was like whatever somebody did that was in the community, everybody wanted to support it.
Yeah.
And I think it's very hard to come by a community like that. It was, unmatched in that aspect.
Yeah, I loved being there while I was there. It was cool. I just like surrounding myself with people who are like-minded and how determined they are. And everyone in that facility did want to see each other win. So that was a really awesome feeling too.
I think you're right. Being around, I'm just thinking about all the warm and fuzzy feelings from being in there. You are right. 100%. Being around those types of people is phenomenal. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
If you could leave 2 pieces of advice from this conversation today, what would you leave?
2 pieces of advice. I would say overcome those fears that you know are in there. You know that they're there. You say them to yourself a lot. You may not be aware of it at the moment, but when they do come up, I want you to really reach into that and find a way to overcome it, because you can, and then you'll only be better, stronger from it, more confident in yourself, especially. Like, yeah, I did that. That was me. And secondly, I would say to trust in your intuition, because it tells you a lot. And believing in those feelings, again, will also help you feel a little more confident in yourself and trusting in who you are as a person.
I love it. Tori, I have absolutely loved our conversation today.
Me too.
I feel like we touched on so many areas. I was like, we could keep talking, but we'll just do another episode. So
I love that. Thanks.
Thank you so much. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me. This was awesome. I was a little nervous. It's been a while since I've podcasted, and it's been really comfortable and amazing to connect with you again and share stories. And I loved it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.